Hello, my name is Karen Blake and I'm an Indiana State University nursing student. And today I'm going to talk to you about a population at risk, which is those facing abuse or domestic violence. Main objectives for this project are that students will be able to recognize the signs and symptoms of abuse in a victim, that students will be able to explain the differences between psychological or emotional or physical or other kinds of abuse, that students will be able to list and describe some different types of domestic violence, that students will be able to explain the reasoning behind why people abuse others, and that students will be able to list some resources of who they can contact if they or someone they know is in a bad relationship or a dangerous living situation. Please take this time to pause the video and take the pre-test, which is in the link below. An unbelievable statistic is that almost half of all women and men in the United States have experienced psychological aggression by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Another statistic is that nearly 3 in 10 women and 1 in 10 men in the United States have experienced rape, physical violence, and/or stalking by a partner and have reported it as having a related impact on their functioning. Something to keep in mind is that victims of abuse are often really good at hiding the abuse, or they're really good at making up excuses for their abuser. Pay close attention to their behavior, as they will give you clues about the abuse. You may actually witness when a victim's partner says or does something that you consider to be bullying. Your friend may not acknowledge it, or they might make up an excuse about why they did or said something abusive. Another thing you might notice is that the victim won't, or they quote can't hang out with you much anymore. It's very common for the abuser to try to keep the victim close to them and not let them have friendships or see their families much. Another thing that you might notice is that the victim starts acting strange or exhibiting odd behaviors. They might wear inappropriate clothing for the weather to cover up bruises. It might be 90 degrees out, but they have long sleeves on. They may constantly seem stressed out about doing something wrong and feeling like they're going to get in trouble for it. Another thing that we should keep in mind is that the victim is not always going to ask for help. They might turn down help that you offer or deny that there's a problem. Usually, getting help has to start with the victim, and they have to admit that there is a problem. Victims might exhibit signs of an alcohol or drug addiction themselves to cope with what's going on. They may seem meek or apologetic for things that they think they did wrong and you might be getting mad at them for. They might show signs of anxiety and or depression. They might seem afraid or withdrawn, and they might start doing things that are uncharacteristic of them, like if they're usually on time but suddenly they're always late to meetings. This could be a sign that something is going on at home as well. One of the most important things to realize is that domestic violence, abuse, is all about control. There are many different forms of abuse, but the underlying theme is always control. The abuser wants to be in control of the situation, the victim's emotions, the victim's body, their money, where they go, who they see, and what they do. They want to be the one calling all of the shots all of the time. So there are several different kinds of abuse. The first abuse that we're going to talk about is the one that probably people think of most often, and this is physical abuse. Physical abuse could be anything from victims being hit, being kicked, being burned. They could have objects thrown at them. The abusers will take their anger out on the victims. They can restrain them, they can lock them up. Lots of different ways that a person can have physical abuse done to them. Another kind of abuse is one called emotional abuse. This could also be called verbal or psychological abuse. And this is a way that the abuser will criticize the victim or use words to abuse the victim. Often they will criticize the victim in front of others, putting them down to make them feel like they're less than worthy, possibly to build the abuser up. The abuser may keep them from practicing their religion, they might keep them from their friends and family, and they can twist the victim's words on them. Oftentimes with this, also the abuser might accuse the victim of doing things like cheating on them, even though there's no reason for them to think that. A third type of abuse is sexual abuse. The abuser may use force or guilt or manipulation to have sex with the victim or to force them to have sex with someone else. And in all of these cases, they are not considering the victim's wishes. A specific form of sexual abuse is actually called stealthing, And this is where the abuser might remove a condom before or during sex and controlling the possibility of pregnancy. This could be turned around as well, where maybe the woman doesn't take birth control when the couple decided that they were going to wait. A fourth kind of abuse is isolation. And then this is where the abuser might not let the victim see others. Often they'll keep them away from their family and close friends because they're worried that they might try to help get them away from the abuser. The victim might also self-isolate because they're afraid of being humiliated by the abuser or having others find out about the abuse. Another kind of abuse is called economic abuse, and this is where the abuser might dictate how much the victim's money is spent or how the victim's money is spent. They might not allow them to have their own paycheck. They might give them an allowance or have them quit their job so that all the money is coming from the abuser and they're in control of it. The most important thing to remember is that you do not deserve to be abused. Everyone deserves to be in a loving, supportive, stable relationship. So the next thing we need to do is ask the question why. Why does abuse take place? Well, often abuse is a cycle. Sometimes the abuser was abused as a child and then they became the abuser. It is always about putting their needs before the victim's needs. They want control and they like the feeling of having power over someone else. But we also have to remember it is a choice. Sometimes you think of an abuser as just being someone who abuses when they are drinking or doing drugs. Drugs and alcohol can make things worse, but it is never an excuse. Some people only abuse when they are using, but if they don't get help and get sober, the abuse will continue. This is still not okay. It is not an excuse. If you are in an abusive relationship and you are not sure what to do, something that you should do is create a safety plan. There are many resources out there for you if you need your way out. Some things you should think about are opening your own bank account and start saving money. That way you are the only one that knows about it and you can access it if you need to run and you need to get out quickly. Something else you should do is pack
I'm gonna kill
a
myself if
getaway
this doesn't
bag
work.
with items that you will need if you have to leave quickly. And keep this somewhere where it's not going
Freaking
to
the
be
video,
found.
like I'm trying to get it to a certain
Another
amount of time, but
important
it
thing
doesn't,
would be to
like,
find
it switches
someone
over, it
that you
takes
can
too
trust
long.
and you
It
can
takes too
confide
long.
in, because that person might be the one that
I'll
helps
explain to
you
you when
get
I'm
out.
done with this.
The most important thing to remember is that you are not alone and that you can get help. You can go online to thehotline.org or you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and that number is 1-800-799-SAFE, SAFE, or 7233. Again, that's 1-800-799-7233. You can get help.